Good afternoon and welcome to the session Career Champions 2. Our presenter is Erin Mullen. Erin is Senior Associate Director with the Career Center. She provides strategic direction for employer and industry relations and leads high-impact experiential learning programs. Erin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction. Thank you for being here this afternoon. While I recognize we have a smaller group in attendance, I will try to modify the presentation to try to weave in some of your individual experiences and positions at the university and how we can best assist you individually to help your student body and your populations that you serve. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, this is Career Champions Level 2. This is the second part of a 3-part series to help and guide faculty and staff members in their career conversations that they have with their student populations at the University of South Carolina. So the focus that we'll chat about today is experiential education. And for the basis of this presentation, the experiential education opportunities that we'll be focusing on are internships, cooperative education, which are known as co-ops, as well as student employment. We recognize that at USC there are many other forms of experiential education and experiential learning. However, these are those 3 core components that we will focus on today. We'll also drive into some national trend data on experiential education and early workforce development. So what are the trends that employers are looking for in their early talent recruitment? So we will be focusing on that conversion from undergraduate to full-time employee, as well as look at the career competencies and skill sets that are most critical in obtaining for students in these opportunities. And then following that, give you some resources for you to aid in those conversations in the programs and other opportunities you might be driving in your individual areas for your students. Throughout the conversation, I do want it to be a conversational base, so please feel free, put questions in the chat, unmute yourself, and rather have it more conversational than a lecture going forward. So we know that when students are looking for experiences, and that while you might be hosting individual experiences in your areas, these are the key 4 areas that students are looking to gain. And again, this is on a national trend, which USC falls with. They're looking for that knowledge acquisition. So what are they taking from the classroom, from their major or minor classes, their focused content curriculum, and how are they developing that in the workplace? What skills are they developing? How are they gaining practice in those skill set compositions? How are they exploring their careers? What's interests them? What are they talented in? What are their core values as individuals, and how are they applying those values in the workplace? And then following that personal improvement. So we know that for a number of these students, they might have worked part-time jobs in either high school or freshman, sophomore year, but an internship is one of those first, could be an extent 3 to 6 month opportunities for them to really have that professional exposure in a workplace. So how are they improving as individuals, and what are they putting in to have that personal improvement? But I am going to stop there before I go on. I wanted to ask you, Rachel, Nate, and Kelsey, what programs do you, in your individual areas that you focus on, that are beyond the classroom or help students in that exploration outside of the classroom? So you can either put it in the chat, you can unmute, but what are some of those programs or that program area that you help support for students? And feel free, if you want to engage via the chat like you are, that's perfectly fine.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Could you please elaborate on what the initial prompt was? Are you asking us, like, of these 4 categories, what we typically assist students with? Is that what you were asking?
I'll rephrase that. My question was more, what beyond the classroom opportunities do you help support or provide for your students within your individual area?
Okay, I predominantly work with undergraduate students because I'm a doctoral candidate right now. So I do graduate research as well as instructor of record for minor courses. And so outside of the classroom, a lot of this might be like networking for anyone that's interested in research opportunities, or for example, I teach career planning and development right now. So things that I would do outside of the classroom might be offering supports on how to navigate certain like university bulletins so that they can locate volunteer opportunities. And I especially try to offer them a lot of various dates for professional development opportunities that the university is providing. So I think ultimately it would be just multiple instances of interfacing to support them, and that looks different depending on what I'm assisting them with.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. And we know there is study abroad, there's research, there's leadership components all across the university. But the key things that are woven into many of them beyond the classroom opportunities, including ones that are woven into academic requirements, are significant time and effort. We know that to have that learning experience and to have that growth mindset for students, there has to be significant time and effort woven into those opportunities. There needs to be clear expectations. So students are coming from a very syllabus woven mindset, that they're having those expectations laid out at the beginning. What are the things? What are the tasks? What are my requirements? What are the due dates, and how will I be assessed or measured upon my performance? So having those clear expectations, we educate employers who are hosting these opportunities. You can create almost like a draft syllabus that is speaking to a student's language, but for instance, with an internship, what are the key project areas that a student will be performing in? How will they be measured? When will they be having those conversations with their team lead or their supervisor? Are they on a weekly basis? Are they bi-weekly basis? So it's giving that structure, which students definitely need to be successful in that environment. We know that required reflection is another key piece of this. And if you are not familiar with the Center for Integrative and Experiential Learning, that's another wonderful partner office on campus that their name is SEAL, but they do a lot with required reflection for graduation. So for students who are going through graduation with leadership distinction or GLD recognition, they have that reflection woven into a lot of what they provide in terms of student requirements. But yes, that's a key piece that we feel is very important. So for students to really gain that skill set of reflecting back and sharing what they've learned, we know that while they might be putting it on their resume or their CVs a year from now, what they really need to be able to do is share what they've learned and how are they selling to that next person that walks in the door, or that next person they meet. How are they selling for their next opportunity? And then being comfortable with feedback. So even feedback, constructive feedback, how are they comfortable receiving as well as giving feedback and having those constructive conversations with the people that are on their teams, with those supervisors out in the field. So we share and practice and educate students that those things do arise and to be comfortable with them. And we do share that the more you practice those pieces, you will gain that better sense of understanding and comfort level with those engagements. So our first one that we're going to share about today, and please feel free to either unmute or put in the chat if you want to share about past internships that you've had or internships that you've heard that your students have acquired, or how you support them. But typically internships within the University of South Carolina, they're one-time professional work experiences. So they're either related to a student's career aspirations, or for certain programs at UC, they are required within their academic program or major. They typically are monitored by practicing professionals. So these professionals are industry leaders depending on the organization. For internships, they can either be paid or unpaid. We do go by the Fair Labor Standards Act, which is the FLSA within the federal government. For-profit organizations, they do have to pay their students at least federal minimum wage to be legally in compliance. But however, for some of our nonprofit or government sectors, they can be unpaid. You might have that students are receiving academic credit if it's a requirement for graduation in that program, or a student elects to pay for elective credit within one's program. And then to support, typically at USC, it's our STEM populations and our business students who track into co-ops, but co-ops can be a minimum of 2 rotations, could be 3 or 4. So you might have a student who is out doing a full-time co-op at a corporation during the entire fall semester, not taking any classes, comes back to USC in the spring, takes a full load of classes, goes back out in the summer and fall the following year. But it depends on that organization's need for rotations. We can be very flexible within their programs as long as we start from an early standpoint with their advisor and their degree program to make sure that they stay on track. But our co-op program is a very high yield for a pipeline for recruitment. So within our STEM and business populations, these students typically have full-time hires by the end of their second rotation. We always tell students this is, in a sense, at least a 6-month interview of you, and you are interviewing that organization for 6 months as well. So key snapshot here, I'm not going to dive too in depth with this, but you will have the deck. So if there's questions that arise after the conversation today, you will have the deck, and I'm happy to engage in anything, or feel free to share with your teams or your students, and we're happy to help. But we do support both full-time and part-time internships from a non-credit scale. So academic credit programs are woven in those individual academic departments, but we provide an opportunity for students who do not need credit or don't have a credit option built into their curriculum. So we, again, full-time and part-time, the hours threshold here, and these could be both fall, spring, and summer. Again, a little bit more about our program. It's tuition fees free. So students stay enrolled, especially over fall and spring, by being enrolled in this program. It's a placeholder program. So while they're not paying anything, they do stay enrolled. Their scholarships and financial aid for many of our students is very important, and that's put on hold so they're not in jeopardy of losing scholarships or in payback mode for loans. It does go on their official transcript for their opportunity, and it does count for graduation with leadership distinctions. So if you have any questions about this, I'm happy to help. Again, you will have the deck, and we do go by Dropad because it is an official placeholder that goes on their Self-Service Carolina accounts. And this is fresh off the presses, so this is January 2023 data, but just wanted to showcase here the top 2 especially, that the value that we share, especially for our students with internships and co-ops. Again, this is undergraduate or bachelor's level, but you can see here that the great value that organizations play and put into those programs. And then that last bullet line is tailored directly to USC. So this is bachelor's level graduates from the University of South Carolina. That 2021-22 data, our graduation survey, those students earned nearly $10,000 more than their peers who did not participate in an internship at graduation. So when you think of that as a starting salary jump, and the trajectory over the lifetime of their career, it's significant. So we do always encourage students, if there is an opportunity to get engaged, that they take it, especially outside of the classroom. Micro internships, so your students might be interested in the gig economy. They might not be in a traditional environment or opportunity that they could go out and do an internship. It just might not fit for their lifestyle or fit for their degree program. But micro internships are project-based work that students can engage in. They're in between 5 and 40 hours in duration. They're all paid, and about 95% of them are virtual. And they can apply for these, and like I said, they're great opportunities for students to showcase their talents and to build that skill set. Student employment is that last one that I'll touch on right here. But this is a great way for our populations who either are not ready for an internship yet, can't go off campus, but our colleagues within the Career Center are working very hard with offices across the campus to really make student employment a higher yield impact and to align it with almost on-campus internship models that are seen at other institutions, because we want those students to get as a value of an opportunity as their peers who go off-site. And we are working to make sure that opportunities within departments and offices across campus for recruitment are posted on Handshake, which is our portal open to all university students and alumni. And again, we're trying to close the equity gap for student attainment of these high performing opportunities. And we're trying to make sure that everyone has access to be able to apply. So right now we're going to jump to a whiteboard, and that will be in the chat, but I just wanted to have a quick conversation about competencies, what you feel are the skill sets that students need to be obtaining during these opportunities, how you're helping students obtain these within your program areas, and then what you would like students to develop in. So if you know of skill sets that you feel are really important for their future professional growth, please feel free to share those. So you'll see on the top of that whiteboard, there is a text icon, there's a pen icon, and feel free to engage on this. If it is not working for you directly, you can always put those in the chat and I can pop them over to the whiteboard as well. Negotiation, that's a great one. Good. The curiosity, are you thinking from like a lifelong learner, that they're always curious, they're always wanting to obtain and develop? Are there skills that you're seeing that students are lacking in right now, either in the courses that you help instruct through your day-to-day interactions? Are there skill sets that you feel that they need to develop more into? Self-starters, communication, it's good, very good. Accountability, that self-responsibility, these are great. And I am going to screenshot these so we save them. And I just wanted to share this. So the career competencies and career readiness is the core of Career Champion Level 3. So it's that last conversation or that last piece in the trio of the programs. But I just wanted to share with you all today, you hit on a lot of them. So the top 5 out of the 8 that are trending from a national demand: professionalism. So how are they engaging and interacting in that workplace environment? Critical thinking, so how are they self-troubleshooting? How are they taking ownership over not just jumping to Google or jumping to like a AI, but how are they driving themselves to overcome or to troubleshoot in a cumbersome situation that they've encountered? Communication, so this was spot on. Professional communication in a workplace. We know that for our students who are coming out, especially our traditional age undergrads, they're going to be working in a multi-generational workplace. So how are they utilizing the accepted forms of communication across multi-generations? It might not just be on social media, but do they actually have to pick up a phone? Do they have to have a conversation? Is it face-to-face? What is their comfort level? Or for those who are in hybrid or virtual environments, how are they maintaining that professional communication on a virtual scale? Equity and inclusion, we know that that is drivers in today's society, but how are they performing within that lens? And then teamwork. So how are they being as active members of a team? What is their now go-to? Is it that leader? Is it that follower? But how are they being active contributors on an effective team? And then you can see here, so this is some national data that I wanted to share with all of you, but this is coming from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And you can see on the right-hand side is on a national trend scale. So this is inclusive of USC, but also many other institutions. And this is looking at undergrads, excuse me. That critical thinking is that most deemed essential competency or skill set in today's workforce. You can see from a national lens, critical thinking is ranked last. We know that this is not unique to us, but we know that for students to develop that critical thinking skill set, it can't just be in the classroom. It has to be encompassed into everything that they do. How do we drive this as a necessity across Carolina? So how are we infusing this into the programs we work with? What are we making them do to align themselves to develop that skill set? So this is from last summer. So this is from summer 22. But you can see that critical thinking bar for us, we had about 39.9% of our population. Again, this population is based on those who went through the Carolina Internship and Co-op program. So keep in mind that this is traditionally, at least for co-op, our STEM and our business populations. We know that they might be highly technical, but how are they performing in different subsets or competencies? So you can see that critical thinking was still one of our lowest in terms of performance, but you can see how we gauged on a national scale. And again, that level 3 is really diving into this data, diving into the individual competencies, giving you some tips and feedback and strategies to weave this into your personal programs that you provide and to your daily work with students. And then you can see on a national scale, compared to about close to 90,000 job candidates, you can see that competency marker and attainment across that, merging to advanced sectors of these competencies. But again, all of this will be drilled in more heavily in level 3. I'm also happy to have individual conversations with any of you who want more practice with it. But right now we're going to jump into some pre-experience education. So regardless of the experiential opportunity that you provide or help facilitate, wanted to share some key things for you to keep in mind, especially if students are going off-site from USC. So looking, again, we talked about generational differences in the workplace. What are those commonalities in terms of culture? Do you understand the culture of an environment? Effective communication. So what are the forms and respected communication? Professional benefits. So besides their opportunity, how else can they be involved? I know mentorship was brought up before and volunteerism. So what are those other areas that a student might not be fully thinking or grasping that would be great opportunities for them to be involved within during that time? We also touch on the harder things. So we educate students on harassment, unconscious bias, and violence in the workplace. And again, we know that it can happen anywhere. We just want them to be prepared and have the resources and the education in their back pocket should they ever need it. We do bring in for that, we bring in Save Up. So we have recorded conversations with students about that harassment and how to report, how to support their peers, or be able to provide that resource should they need it, or should they have to be in support of someone else going through that process. Helping students during the experience. So from day one, what are these key things, regardless if it's a mentorship opportunity, a volunteerism, a leadership position, a student employment opportunity, what are these key things that should be woven throughout each piece? So that's setting that structure. What are the expectations? Who will you meet? What are your goals, both personally and professionally? You know, as employees, we always talk about what are your goals for the year? You know, what are those goals you're setting? But what are these goals that students are setting for themselves? Seeking out that feedback, being comfortable with receiving that feedback, taking the initiative to ask questions, and putting themselves out there. Networking. So who are the people that they can capture to build their professional networks? We have Mentorship Hub, we have LinkedIn, but who are those people that they can quickly be in conversation with to help build their future aspirations? All the basics such as dress code, technology, company culture, making sure that they're representing NEETC every day of their opportunity. And then after, so this is really where that reflection comes in for students. We want to make sure that they understand what they've learned and how they make meaning of it, that they can take the skills and the next steps of their career in planning based on the opportunity that they just completed. And then having an understanding of the grasp of the attributes or skill sets that the employers are looking for in their next hires. So if it's a junior and they're going on for a future internship, or if this is a senior about to graduate and they're walking out the door, what skill sets do they know that that organization is looking for? And also, what are the skill sets that they personally know that they are doing well in and that they also have to obtain a little more developed within? So not going to dive too deep into this, but feel free to share in the chat or unmute But what are some reflection opportunities that you felt have been of value or that you've seen demonstrated to really help either from you, from your personal interactions with them, or for ones that you provided? What are some reflection opportunities that you help really help someone make meaning of their opportunity or the opportunity that they just encountered or went through?
I think my biggest reflexive piece would be any similarity or differentiation between what their ideal was or what they were anticipating versus what actually transpired. Additional pieces that I have them reflect on, anything that challenged their current understanding of whatever that experience entailed. Another one would be, so what from this would you be able to implement into your professional development or how you would address future questions and problems?
Those are wonderful. I know I've personally seen students where they have it in their head, they can really think about what they want to say, they can't get it down. So they either can't convey it or they can't put it in writing. It's almost like they have a gap between what they're trying to process out loud or in written form. But we really try, and I applaud you for doing this. And those are some great prompts for students to reflect on, because the more that they practice, the easier it comes. And I feel for myself, we've all been in opportunities where we've had to, on the fly, right, update a CV, update a resume, and you're trying to think back about what you did during that position or that opportunity. But sometimes you have a mind blank because it has been so long. But we always share with students, the more that you can get into practice of doing this, those types of credentials come easier as well.
One thing that I would suggest for those that are having a hard time in conceptualizing the prompts that I provided, like they may have the answers in their mind, but then transposing that, I understand the dilemma you're speaking to. In that regard, I would encourage students potentially to share their experience via like a story, and that they could do this on their own and that they could record themselves, which I mean may seem uncomfortable for some folks, but you know, it's a process that can be beneficial. But I would encourage students to kind of tell their story in that experience in the event that they're having a hard time transposing it. And then in reviewing that audio recording, they could then take note of some of the themes that they're recognizing, maybe to help them identify like, okay, this is predominantly what I did within this setting, or this is what my role typically looked like, any themes that they can find.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. I will definitely incorporate that. I find that with our engineers, so the engineering students I work with, again, they're very highly technical. They know the processes and they know the technical terminology of what they did. For some of them, it's very hard to get it for them to convey what they did or what they shared or what was the value or what was the meaning. But I will definitely take that suggestion that you just provided, because I think that will help some of them articulate and really process and make that connection on an easier scale. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. And if I can add to that, I think something that may be beneficial to preemptively provide to students before they set off on this endeavor, especially for those that may be more pragmatically oriented, is to encourage them to be cognizant and reflect on their emotionality and disposition when they arrive to their location on a daily basis and when they're leaving, just to determine like, is this a good fit? Am I recognizing any dissonance within myself when I arrive? Like, obviously there's going to be discomfort with a new experience, but okay, so over so much time do they recognize that it seems more comfortable and that it's easier to do, and emotionally they feel it's a good space to be in? Because I think that that emotionality piece is something that may be lacking and that folks don't always consider, like, am I content and happy with what I'm doing versus it's a means to an end.
Yes, definitely, definitely. That is crucial. Great. Thank you, Kelsey. So running lists of what they've learned and any qualifications that they've expanded on. That's fantastic as well. That's very helpful because, again, we know that they might be processing, yes, something tangible. Thank you both very much for your contributions. So the last thing that I wanted to share was I wanted to give you guys some time is that So we have a team of both employer relations and career development coaches within our office. We have 3 main offices on campus. So our main site is within Thomas Cooper. We are in level 5. So if we walk in that main floor, we are directly across the hallway from the Center for Teaching Excellence, but we're somewhat located right below the Starbucks on that main floor. So you can go down to level 5. We do have a satellite office within pre-professional and graduate advising. So that team helps supports pre-law, pre-med, and pre-health students in their engagements. And then we also have our 3rd satellite office within Swearingen focused on serving our STEM students, so our engineering and computing students. So we're in a variety of spaces and areas across campus. Our team heavily uses Microsoft Teams, so you can always catch us via that modality as well. And then we both serve students and employers in person and then in a hybrid fashion as well. So definitely we're able to engage in a variety of modalities to serve those populations. But I wanted to open it up today. If either of you have any questions or if you would like additional information, I'm happy to provide that to you or your teams. And yes, please feel free. We would love your feedback from today. If you both complete that evaluation, that would be very helpful in my professional growth as well. So thank you for being here today. Thanks for engaging. And then, like I said, you will receive the deck. So if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to refer your team members or your students to us. But thanks for being here today.